That's cool.
Okay, we're on last.
Update my resume. Somebody asked me for one the other day.
Did you get it?
Did it get cut off?
It's all right. Somebody asked for mine the other day, and I'm like, you really want to see it?
No.
I was under.
I applied for a,
Throwing that one out there.
I applied for a hospital administrator job
That was a young,
out at Condos Hospital.
a little white.
We love your experience, we'd love to hire you, but the people that own the hospital don't think they can afford you. It's like, okay.
They go down real fast.
Well, that's good of them to say that up front, if that's actually the case.
And I could care less about the pay.
Well, you must be like the guy I had lunch with something.
Well,
He's got a, from what I understand, his credit card has a
No,
fairly decent limit on it.
He came past
Yeah,
me.
$82 million.
Once he got off the sidewalk.
That's pretty good credit card.
well, my husband and I are both retired military, so we both got that. And with the VA, I'm 300% disabled, but the max they pay is 100%. My husband's 100% disabled, so we got max $3,300 a month tax-free for the rest of our lives. So, and then he's the manager at the True Value here, Joe. That's my husband.
I found that out, my wife told me.
That's weird.
It's all from that house.
This guy had
Oh, I'm working on my last thing. It's up. It's
his wife is my daughter-in-law's cousin.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, he,
just kept on and on.
Gotcha.
His house was on the market at $13 million.
I'm gonna get my charger. Apparently they didn't charge the charger all day, but
He's one we need to ask for a job.
Well, I just do it, I mean, I've worked aircraft accidents, disasters, humanitarian missions, airlines.
It may not, depending on what, I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I'm broken into Johnny's. I'm literally broken into Johnny's. I've got wires embedded in my spine, I've got metal, I've got lung damage I've sustained from being exposed to nasty stuff. I
Well, I'm
mean,
just saying, some of it may not be working. I mean, it's better than not having it at all.
oh yeah, but here is a he's a psychologist, me and two dogs at home. Look at him. Need to get out of the house. And this'll,
Well, then I what you say, maybe, you're next door to each other.
oh, okay.
I mean, I've got pictures like it. I love telling people everywhere. We live
Oh, wow.
from all the way through high school.
I'm good, sir, how are you? Yes, sir, you too. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I'd rather people call me Sheena.
Her father had a mobile home service company. Every one he was on and doing something, and came down on him. He walked away with some millions of dollars, but
It didn't kill him.
no, it didn't. He
Wow.
would have been better off.
Oh, I'm
So, I mean,
sure.
that's what I'm saying. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's better than not having it, but it's.
I have my good days and my bad days. I got in in 2008. Patients. Hi, sir. I'm good. How are you?
I knew the warrant officer, I knew they were gonna move the warrant officer back over here, but I didn't know when. How did they do that?
No, I have my good days and bad days, and that it, you have to oh, yeah, no. Just tell everybody. Hi. Hi, I'm Sheena Martinez. Nice to meet you. Oh, yeah. I don't know if you've heard my background. I'm a retired Air Force Hospital Administrator. So I've dealt with money and manpower. I was in charge of money and manpower and resource management for Wilford Hall. I served as Inspector General for Wilford Hall. I was facility manager for an Air Force hospital, so infrastructure and all that stuff. So retired Air Force. Okay, my husband and I are, between the two of us, we have over 50 years. So. Oh yeah. Oh no, you're good. Oh, that's right. I have a neurostimulator in my spine, and I learned the hard way that don't put my cell phone on that pocket. It drains the cell phone and charges my battery.
I don't know if it's, you sent her the instructions how to read
Hi.
the videos.
Well, thank you.
I'll see what happens.
How are you?
You guys bear with me.
You must have swapped chairs with me.
No, I did not. But I'm glad you're just making the noise. I bet they'll all make noise.
There's one down on
Yes, because they're going to be in, I was going to put that in my blog, but I haven't done it for sure.
Yeah, but I think we ought to know about that a little bit ahead of time.
Well, it hasn't been finalized yet because they're waiting to get their office in the county building.
Before they,
And they're
sounds like
supposed
it's
to
already
add,
agreed to that.
I don't know, Fisher, I talked to Fisher today, and he said he was going to talk to him.
What's that?
For the, PSD, time on the building. I don't know if they're building one or just going to give them space.
They were out of the airport.
No, until they get the space in the county building, but I don't know if they're actually going to build a place, remodel, or what. I have no idea. Oh, what's the bill? I don't know. I haven't gotten the information on that yet.
Or a parking lot. Cost overruns.
You gotta check that.
One more car.
No, I asked.
It's not a road. It's not a road. What you see is the road from the highway.
Well, I haven't been told anything official. Yes.
I just look at it as, it's just something to think about. Yes, ma'am. Oh. Sorry.
So,
There's all, there's a road there.
The USB port right there.
talk to Wayne, see what's going on. They don't tell me about permits. They don't have that stuff. Yeah.
I know I'm already doing well.
Yeah. And see about ESP.
I'm gonna be coming in, I looked at the radar before tomorrow morning here. We've got students moving in from the west again, and we'll see if they make it here.
I like to go throw fertilizer out there, right? Of course, that's mainly.
We were gonna get a bad storm last night, and nothing happened.
Yeah.
That's what I was just looking at. It's spitting rain a little bit ago when I drove in.
I did see that as well.
$100 on an irrigation
I see it on the windshield.
It's a little hurt.
It's the only place I've ever seen it. We would go out and look at that.
I can't get the packet. I can't get the packet.
Yeah.
What you think?
That's where my uncles and all that up in Wisconsin were. It's up in Newfoundland, my mom's from Canada, and so they have their fields set up like that. Yeah, no.
But these were built for the cotton field.
Okay.
Legal survey work out in West Texas.
Oh, wow.
14? Thank you.
That's a good question. Oh, my God.
Oh.
So we're gonna ask him, look at them.
If he shows up.
Yeah, see, before we got stationed here, we were stationed in the middle of nowhere, Oldest middle nowhere. If you're looking at if you had a shirt, you were lucky.
Yeah, that's right next to the,
Yeah, we were about 45 minutes north of Vernon, Texas. How's your
North Branch is right there.
Yep.
It's Friday night.
I got a doctor's appointment this morning for my wife. Okay, if you want to just give me a call tomorrow afternoon when you get
He does cold, dry, northern snowstorm. He said, he told me, he said, I'll let you know if I'm there. I'm going to be here 2 more times in my lifetime. They're playing it.
Well, we were stationed in Alaska before there. Yeah.
All right.
I can stand that for a little in the summer, but I mean.
Yeah, the summer was mine was
critical stage.
Yes,
I started in 66 instead of 6.
You what?
I actually did 66 instead of 6.
Oh. Give them to the people.
Well, and I paid about 30 of them in the back of my
Good, good.
That'll work.
And the only time you do that is when it's in color. Murphy's Law, right? They're pretty though.
That way they'll have the treatment.
All right, you guys, my first meeting, so bear with me. I really want to do this, so calling the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Let the record show that everyone is here and our new District 1 Representative, Sheena. What we are going to do next, Pledge of Allegiance, so if you please stand and remain standing for the prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor I pledge allegiance to you, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Pastor Ballard will give the invocation.
Let's bow our heads, please. We'll just... Father, we ask your presence and invoke your presence and thank you that you, Holy Spirit, you're here. We ask you to give wisdom to our leaders, our new leaders, and God bless them, their families, for the time that they serve, and God give us all wisdom as we love our city, we love the people in our city. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Any changes? Anyone have any comments? All good? Can I have a motion?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, second?
I second it.
Okay. We're doing something a little bit different. Yeah, let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All against? And the motion passes. All right, the next thing is citizen comments. I don't need you to sign up. I just would raise your hands, and if you'd like to speak, 3 minutes, and if you need more time, just ask. Yes, sir. Your name and address.
Okay. I'm pretty sure most of you know who I am. I'm Steven Santana, news editor for the Castroville News Bulletin. I live in San Antonio at 3714 Fiesta Trail, so I don't live here, but still have some interest in the city. First of all, let me start by saying congratulations to Mayor Santleben and Councilwoman Sheena Martinez, and to Paul Carey for holding on to a seat. I just wanted to throw some numbers at you real quick. I know y'all probably heard them before, but it's just to keep that reality in y'all's minds. There were only 440 total votes for the mayor election this year out of 1,925 total registered voters in the city of Castroville. Wow. That's low. When it comes to 2015's mayor vote, 341 total. The 2017 mayor vote, 472. So we're lower than the 2017 mayor vote this year. For Medina Valley, which has a total number of 17,220 registered voters, only 532 people voted for the bond. I believe that's the correct number. So either way, numbers were low this year. We're still trying to figure out where that's coming from, why that's happening. But just a reminder, no matter creed, race, or party, get out and vote and get out the vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to tag on to what he said. Natalie Spencer has given us the opportunity to write something every week, and I will be inviting council and myself, and in the editorial section we'll give you a little blurb about what's happening in the city. Okay? Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Priscilla Garrett, 702 Florence. I notice on the agenda that you're going to revisit the possibility of reaching out to companies that provide consultation on city planning. I'd like to encourage you to utilize this kind of help until you're able to hire a permanent city planner. I know that it is very important to plan for what's coming in the very near future, but I think it's just as important to take care of what we already have. I serve on 2 boards, Planning and Zoning, and I chair the Historic Landmark Commission. On the historic side, we have several of our historic homes undergoing renovations by new owners. They need a commission that can respond to their questions and requests and provide guidance in a timely manner. And we need staff guidance to work with us to provide that. When people have to wait and wait for an answer, they tend to start on their own. And if that is not following our ordinance and our guidelines, it can become a frustrating situation on both sides. The commission has only met once this year. As for planning and zoning, we were scheduling to work on and review several ordinances. That hasn't happened. We haven't met at all this year. In fact, we haven't met since last June. And because of the recent construction of a modular home in the city limits, which as of now is completely acceptable, we know that several ordinances really need review and updating. With the community development position vacant, both of these boards have just become names on a sheet of paper. Citizens volunteer to serve because they care. Let's not take a chance on losing good volunteers because we're doing nothing. I know that everyone on city staff is stretched as far as they can stretch and are being asked to do not just double duty, but sometimes triple duty. So again, please take a second look at getting help, even if it's not permanent at this time. Thanks.
And that is an item we'll talk about tonight. It's on the agenda. Anyone else? Yes?
Hi, Darren Schroeder, 1410 Gentiles. Welcome, Mayor and new council person, member person. So I've got two things. One, I'm also on Planning and Zoning and Historic Landmark Commission, and totally agree. I'm glad that you're putting that on the agenda. We really need to start working through some of that. I'd really like to get, as we go through that, I'd also like to get input from council about what are the things specifically that you want us to look at, what are some of the things you want us to avoid, what are some of the things that you want us to achieve, and give us really clear direction and help us work with whomever we have in place from city staff or from outside consulting to help us work through that so that we can deal with some of these problems before they become real problems. The other thing that I want to encourage you. Councilman Carey posted something this morning that was fantastic. I think it was this morning on Facebook about the Cowboy Way, and I want to encourage that. So it's basically about being neighborly. It's about being friendly. It's about being that person that people can come to. And what I've seen over the last couple of years is this culture up here has been very combative. It's been very strained between city staff and elected officials. And I encourage you, I see smiles up there today and I see people that are working together. I encourage you to continue with that culture. I'm sure that you all had great goals and ideas and plans when you came into office. The problem is that culture will eat planning for breakfast. So please continue with that culture. Let us know how we can help. Let's lock arms and do what's right for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Let me correct your numbers. Sorry, we're covering a lot of elections. 705 people voted for the bond this year, but that's still only out of 705. But that's still only out of 17,220 total voters, so still very low.
Thank you. Wow. Okay. So, and I assure you, Mr. Schroeder, we're looking at these ordinances. There are several that are in draft form that should have been already looked at, but we will get back with you. The next item is the introduction of our Finance Director, Leroy Vidalis, and Mr. Elliott will introduce it.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor. Leroy, if I could have you stand up. First of all, I'd like to let the council meet. Some of you guys have had a chance to come in and meet with Leroy. We're very lucky to have an individual that's got 12 years of executive level experience as a CFO, who oddly enough has been a member of an EDC board in a surrounding city and a mayor pro tem on a city council. So he's got policy from y'all's perspective also in economic development, and has really, this is the beginning of your second week, been a great asset. He's really working hard on financial stuff. We'll be getting financial reports to you guys monthly, getting you investment reports a lot more frequently. We've got things going and heading deep into the budget cycle. We're about 2 months behind, so we're going to be expediting that process very, very quickly. And Leroy is ready to do that and has already begun a lot of due diligence. And at this time, I'd just like to say, Leroy, thank you for joining the team.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Well, okay. You said he's finance director. It said interim. Is he the?
He's the interim.
Interim finance director, yes, sir.
Well, I was curious whether he'd been hired or.
No.
I saw his interim hearing and somebody said.
I did. I didn't put the interim in. It's, sorry. All right, the next one, we have 2 proclamations. I'm going to read both of them, then I will present them. We have a proclamation for our National Police Week and National Public Works Week. So I will read them and then present them. The first one is National Police Week. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which it falls as Police Week. And whereas the International Association of Chiefs of Police has declared law enforcement officer safety and wellness a top priority, and the IACP's Center for Officer Safety and Wellness promotes the importance of individual, agency, family, and community safety and wellness awareness. And whereas the members of law enforcement agency of Castroville play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of Castroville, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their police department, and that members of our police department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence or disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. And whereas the Police Department of Castroville has grown to be modern and scientific law enforcement agency, which increasingly provides a vital public service. Now, therefore, I, Phyllis Santleben, Mayor, and the City Council of Castroville, call upon all citizens of Castroville and upon all patriotic civil and educational organizations to observe May 15th, 2019 as Peace Officer Memorial Day, to honor those peace officers who through their courageous deeds have lost their lives or have become disabled in the performance of duty, and observe the week of May 12th through May 18th, 2019 as Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies in which all of our people may join in commemorating police officers, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities, and in doing so have established for themselves an inevitable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. In witness whereof I have signed, set my signature and the official seal of the City of Castroville this 14th day of May 2019. I will read the Public Works. Whereas Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities, and the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Castroville. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals, who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, streets, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the Castroville area to gain knowledge of and to maintain a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public programs in their respective community. And whereas the year 2019 marks the 59th Annual National Public Works Association, and now therefore I, Phyllis Santleben, Mayor of the City of Castroville, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th to the 25th, 2019 as National Public Works Week in the City of Castroville. And I call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved, and there are a lot, issues involved in providing our public works, and to recognize the substantial contributions which public works professionals make every day for our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. And these are two very, very, very important departments that we have, especially right now. I'll present the police, who is here for the police.
It's just me.
Yes,
ma'am.
Where are the rest?
Lieutenant James.
Oh, okay. All right, this is the proclamation.
Yeah, I want to stand over by the paper can get
Right there. These are the children of Castroville. Actually, that's one child. Thank you so much. And the next one is for Public Works. So who will be our Public Works person?
Mr. Clayton.
Both of you can do it.
John, you go
John,
too.
both of y'all get up there.
Oh, yeah,
All of y'all.
Tom. There's
Get there.
Tom.
Get up there, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And in case you guys don't know, this gentleman has been here quite a while, as well as this gentleman. This gentleman just came and he has a huge task in front of him. And Public Works is one of the most important things that we have right now. They're working really hard with the limited staff, so they deserve a week. I don't know, I guess you can have coffee if you want.
I was just to say, either that or get in front of the picture, the painting, and you kind of spread out a little bit. Oh, you're such a pain. I know. It makes a nice photo op.
We were just here.
This is yours. Ours. Theirs. Thank you. Thank you, guys. All right. The next one is update and possible action. So we'll discuss and see if there's some action on recruitment process for a permanent city administrator, which we have started already, and we have Mr. Turner here who will give you the way forward, the schedule, and then we can discuss.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Turner.
Here.
That's fine, or either one, if you want to set it down, that one's working.
Okay. All right.
Just check the green light. Is it on?
No.
Just press it, hold it.
There we go.
Okay.
Green line. No. I think my voice will carry over if it's on. I feel like it's a Senate conservation hearing.
They're nicer.
Yeah, I'm more comfortable right here. Thank you, Mayor, Councilman, and new council member Martinez. You may recall about a month ago when I was here, we had selected 4 finalists, and because everything that was said in executive session, we will not be mentioning any names tonight, but I will brief you all that of the 4 finalists, we had a couple that dropped out for one reason or another. Some found another job, and some just decided that what they had was a pretty good thing. We've added back, as you may recall, we had 11 original semis, and of that list, we selected 4. And so when one dropped out, it wasn't that big of a deal to pull one of the other names that had a very good background up into to become one of our finalists. So we currently have 3 finalists. What I'm asking you tonight is if you will allow us permission to move forward with those finalists. We'll contact all of them, notify them that they are finalists for the position, begin our background searches, our reference checks, and do everything that's the media background on each and every one of them. We'll also have them complete their, it's a personality profile, it's called a DISC. We'll have them complete that piece of paper. And then once we get all that material done, then we'll be sending you all the finalist book. With that finalist book, and Councilman Martinez, what I'll do is I'll send you all the information, the background information that the previous council have got on each of the applicants. So you'll be caught up with all them. So if we proceed with that schedule, we'll then find a time, I'll find a time for all of the applicants to bring them in for a final interview with you all. The way I will do that is I'll go through probably Deborah or Lee, but I'll have them contact you all for 2 dates that work best for your schedule. I'll set up a week. You'll tell me 2 of the dates. We can do all the interviews in 1 day, but I need 2 dates just in case some of the applicants already have something planned, a family vacation or something, and couldn't get here. So I'll just need 2 dates from you all. With those 2 dates, then I would expect the applicants, if they want the job, then they'll conform to one of those 2 dates. So we won't be going back and forth, getting more dates from you all and trying to make this work. It'll be enough to make it work, but I'm only going to ask 2 dates from you all, and then we'll make it work. That's option 1. That's the one I would ask that you give us permission to proceed with. Option 2 is we start over. If we start over, we have a 90-day window from the time we announce finalists until we can actually begin another process. So I can't, my company will not allow me or any other representative from SGR to begin the process again for about another 30 days. It would be the end of June. So it'd be July 1st before we could we could begin the new search. And so you're looking at July, August, September with an announcement date of a new manager or new administrator of about October the 1st. So that's option 2. I would just suggest all of you, save one, have been with me through the entire process for the last 4.5+ months. And I think if we just keep going, we've got 3 solid applicants that we can bring to you. Keep in mind that if you get here, you go through the interviews and you just say, none of them are the one that we think is going to be right for Castroville, we'll go back out for the search. And there's no additional cost to the city for that. But I think that of the 3 that we have, all 3 of them are very strong, and I think we'll be able to select a finalist for the city of Castroville. So I would entertain your pleasure on what you'd prefer us to do. And certainly answer any question.
All right. Let's start with Mr. Dyer. Do you have any comments, any questions for Mr. Chairman?
I just need a clarification. Are we talking about bringing them in for a physical interview, or are we talking about a telephonic interview?
Physical would be best. Okay. Yes, sir. I think you need to see the person face to face and talk with them. That person needs to sit in a room with each and every one of you and answer your questions and look you in the eye and be able to step up. A phone conversation doesn't seem to work well for us on the finalists.
Do you want each council member to submit questions to you for you to ask in the meeting, or do you want us to ask them individually?
What we'll do is, I can't get questions from each of you only because of a time constraint. You think about if I've got, say, just 2 questions from 6 of you, that's 12 questions. It'll be a 2-hour process per person. It'll be all day. We normally like to have about a 30-minute. That's just about all the mind can only withstand what the seat can endure is what I understand. So, after about 30 minutes of sitting there and talking, it's just about as much as an applicant can take. So I'll need probably about 3 or 4 total questions max. And here's what will happen. You all will bounce off. A question will be asked, and then you'll think, oh man, that's from that question, let's ask this one, which is fine. As long as every applicant's got to be asked the original 4 same questions. Any bounce question doesn't count. So if you're in the middle of something and you think, and it relates to this topic, you can do that, and every candidate doesn't have to have that question, but they all have to have the same 4 or 5, whatever you choose. But I'll ask all of you to submit, that's a great question, maybe submit 2 or 3, let me pare them down to ones I think I've heard that sound the best, and then I'll send them back to you guys, and you all can say, those are the ones we want, or take this out, add this one.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Todd.
No further questions. I say we move forward.
Mr. Byers.
I agree on moving forward. What sort of, not holding you to a particular day, but just option 1.
Yes.
What time, how much time do you think that's going to take?
2 weeks minimum, 3 weeks probably outside.
2 to 3, okay.
Yes, sir.
That's my opinion.
It'll take that long to get all the backgrounds back and then make the reference checks. I asked for 10 references from each candidate, so that'll be 30 references. I'll be calling, and it just takes a while.
Okay, now I understand. I just
Yes, sir.
wonder if we were talking 2-3 weeks or a month.
3 weeks probably outside. Yes, sir.
All right, good. Councilman Carey.
Let's keep the ball rolling.
I agree. Keep it. Don't restart. Let's
Thank
keep
you.
going.
Thank you.
All right, so more or less everyone's going for this option 1. Can I have a motion?
I motion. Sorry. I motion to keep the ball rolling and let's move forward.
All right, could we put that in option 1, option 2? We're going to go forward with
Option 1.
3. Is that enough to say option 1? All right. Second. All right, Mr. Carey. Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Perfect.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One of these days, we'll quit seeing you so regularly.
Become a regular stop.
Oh, there you go. All right, the next item is consider and take action on additional costs for capping of well number 1 and adopt an ordinance amending the 2019 budget. And this is something that maybe Mr. Elliott will explain, because we tried to do it, they tried to do it, but there were some unforeseen circumstances. And it's in your packet. There's a letter to Linda, and this was probably before she left.
March 6th.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. All yours.
Thank you, Mayor. For a little backup information, TCQ came in, well 1 was needing to be capped. There were some issues with it. My understanding, the council appropriated $39,980 to cap it. When staff did their due diligence in there, they thought we could move forward with capping the well, as was. Staff moved forward, I believe it was in January when the well began, and we began to have some issues of moving forward with it. And Roy, if we need to, can probably provide a little more in-depth information. We also have the individual from Weisinger here to discuss these types of things that happened. Unfortunately, all the stuff that we had stated that the well was at this level, this is what was there, and it was taken care of by TCQ. Unfortunately, as time kept going on, the price went up, and with the change and some different things that occurred, whether it be with Linda leaving, with the finance director, we've just been able to bring it to you guys in this evening. And so we finally have been able to bring this to you guys. Either way, we had to get it capped, one way or another, and we had to move forward to keep this happening. And this is something, unfortunately, that we have to bring back that actually pretty much tripled the price of the capping of the well. Either way, we're going to have to do it. It was cheaper to move forward at that time to go ahead and do that. And so this evening, we have people here to supplement some of the information of what all occurred and be able to answer questions that you guys might have.
All right, we'll start on the other end. Councilman Martinez. Councilwoman. Any questions? And who are the gentlemen? Who do we have? You're the representative.
My name is Steve Martin. I represent Weisinger Incorporated.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
I read over the letter that you provided, and when you realized that the concrete didn't do what it was supposed to do, who did you notify as far as the city?
Linda Coots.
Linda Coots?
And Roy.
And Roy?
Thank you both.
Do you mind stepping up to the podium so we can record it? Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
No problem.
And at that time, nobody told you to hold or anything to...
No, I was actually told to continue, and I was assured that we would get compensated for what was needed to be done to complete the job. Unfortunately, this is a state requirement. This is not our requirement. It has to be done.
Correct. That part, I got. Dealt with many state regulations before regarding this kind of stuff. I don't know if it's normal for the lower level when it comes to doubling the amount of money needing to go out at that level, or if it should have been bumped up to the council, have the council immediately approve that kind of doubling in price.
It would have been hard to do, to be honest. My understanding of the way things were working, and Steve, you might expound upon this, to go in and actually research it more in depth instead of using what the state and everybody else has provided, the cost would have already been pushing close to it. So, I mean, it's one of those ones, I think a lot of it, we moved very reactively with this. There was a lot of exuberance, which is good to come into compliance with TCQ. And the interim public works director was doing the best job she could. Her background was in finance. It was not in public works. And so a lot of this, there was turnover, there was change, and some different things, and we were wanting to get this capped to come into compliance with the TCQ mandates that we had. And so, unfortunately, I think this is one of those things that the data that we had probably wasn't good that you would rely upon via TCQ that's there when you cap wells, and previously that they've been worked upon. And then there's just a lot of variables that don't align very often, unfortunately.
Good.
Yeah, that's all I have. Thanks.
Mr. Carey.
The word capping, I think, is a misnomer. I think we're plugging that well.
Yes,
we're trying to solid fill it from bottom to top.
That is correct.
Because you don't want any translation between layers.
Correct.
Especially since we have a porous casing. More porous, obviously, than we had understood.
Right.
I don't have any questions about what you have done. I really want to know what we are going to do.
The job is complete.
Oh, okay. Okay, so there was
we went ahead and moved forward, and, we've already spent the cost to have it done.
Okay.
That's why we're, seeking to get paid for what we've done.
So essentially, you filled with aggregate to a point where it stopped falling into the hole and then followed it with concrete?
Well, we submitted a plan to Edwards Aqua Authority, which was approved the first time. It wasn't until the second time, and that was after we did a flush of the well and did a camera survey of the well, which was additional cost that was not covered in the contract, to see what exactly happened. Just all the cement, I'm talking about over 150 sacks of cement disappeared. And it's like, where did it go?
Into the aquifer, but yeah.
Yes, that is where it went. But it was diluted to the point where it was not going to hurt the formation. It dissipated, the sand fell out of it and went to the bottom of the formation, and it did not hurt the Edwards one bit. But like I said, there were reasons why this happened. The porous casing, as you said, and there was a drawing that showed a liner that was put in back in 2014. This was not told to us, and it wasn't on any records at the TDLR, that this well report showed it a 7-inch well. It didn't show a 7-inch well with a 5-inch liner. And then the drawing that we got showed a 5-inch liner with perforated casing used as a screen below the bottom of the casing, when in fact it actually went up into the casing. This allowed, when we thought we were at the bottom of the casing, it allowed the cement to U-tube up and out.
Over the top of the liner, yeah.
So essentially that $38,000 got you nowhere. And we didn't know about it. Nobody knew about it.
Obviously, we didn't do it, so, okay.
And so we had to start all over again.
Right.
And I don't know if y'all are familiar with the Edwards, and what they require is to perforate the casing every 50 feet. And by doing so, the cement is supposed to go out, and anywhere there's any voids, it's supposed to fill. Well, unfortunately, when you're poking holes in casing, and there's also holes in the casing, you don't know if you're going into like a little hallway, or if you're going outside. You don't know how big you're getting into.
I'm a former geologist, and I've got some first-hand experience with karst topography in this area, or karst formations. So yeah, you come into a cavern and you could put truckloads of cement. So
and unfortunately, that's essentially what happened, and we ended up having to change the whole procedure, which again was approved by Edwards, and everything was followed to code.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Byers.
Yes. I understand you said you didn't know about all this liner, you didn't know about the wiring, and I can understand if you weren't given that information. Who was responsible for getting him that information?
That would have been, I would say, probably the Public Works Director at that time, and I'm not for sure which one it started under.
Deborah, would you be
I think Mr. Heimrich would have been the one that this started under.
He was our Public Works Director then.
Because that's not to have gotten there. That's.
Well, Mr. Byers.
Yeah, well, I mean, it says you didn't know about the liner, which you should have been informed. I understand what y'all are talking about as far as some of this caverns and stuff, and that's impossible to know. But you should have known about the liner. And there were a couple of things which, like, y'all were surprised. And that if you're doing a project like this, I don't think they should have been surprised with it.
Well, sir,
I just think it should have been a better job of getting these people ready to go. And if it had been another 10, 15,000 we'd have known about, I just think that somebody didn't do a very good job on our part of telling him what he needed to know.
Well, sir, I can say this. Roy gave me the drawing, okay, and it was incorrect. Okay? So even if he had given me this to begin with, it would have been wrong. And that was not something that he made up. That was something that the other well company that had come in and put that in had done. They had given him a drawing that was not correct.
There's some very, on your letter, there's some very bad grammar, very bad spelling. You might want to check that sometime. All right, that's it.
Is that it? All right. Councilman Schuler.
Unless Roy can add something to this situation, I'm good. Roy?
No, sir, I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
And Councilman Dyer.
Yeah, number one, I think that we made a mistake by not bringing it to the council in early March. Obviously, the leaders that were there at the time no longer work for the city, so we can't blame anybody that's here now. I think the people in the city did the best they could do with the circumstances. I mean, you're sitting there with wet cement, you don't have a lot of time to react. I think people did the best they could do. It's unfortunate. There is another lesson here, and this isn't the first contract that I've seen since I've been on the council for a year, where the city failed to do what they were supposed to do, and as a result, it ended up costing the city a lot more money. So the lesson for us, look at the city requirements in our contracts and make sure that we do everything we're supposed to do, because if we don't, it's going to raise the price. Having heard everything that I've heard and read all the documents, I don't think we have any choice but to approve the $70,624 budget amendment and pay this invoice for the work that they did.
All right. Could I have a motion?
Was that a motion?
I move we approve $70,624 budget amendment and pay this invoice in a timely manner.
Second?
I'll second.
Mr. Carey, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you,
Steve.
All right, the next item is, this is an easy one. You guys, there's some copies out there for you on this, the water management plan, if you'd like to look at them and take them with you. We're going to consider and take appropriate action on approving the water management plan, and Mr. Gomez will explain.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As she mentioned, this is the water management plan that we have in place now. It's something that we've been working, it's been adopted years back. Something we've been working on as throughout the years that has gone by. But like many other cities around us, we are faced with the challenges of providing highest quality of water and making sure that we have enough water to support a growing community like we have now. One of the main purposes for this plan is to conserve, protect the domestic water, as well as sanitation facilities, infrastructure, fire protection, preserve the health and wellness, and minimize impacts to the water shortages that we may come up with. Within this water management plan is the water conservation plan, as well as the drought contingency plan. Some of the things, like I mentioned, that we've been doing is tracking our water losses through either metering or ways that we can conserve, making sure that we have our master meters in place that are tracking the water consumptions for our customers, making sure that we do our own maintenance programs and finding meters that might be leaking. We have something in place now where our crews go out and replace these meters to make sure either ones might not be turning or one might be turning too fast, so it goes back and forth for the customers that we serve as well. Controlling theft, there's times when a meter might not be running, but we know somebody lives there. So, and 2 months now has gone by, 3 months gone by, and we say, well, there's no water consumption happening here. We know something's going on, so having our folks go out there and check, so things like that. Educating the public, making sure the public knows of these types of conservations through either mailers or through flyers or a newspaper or even our website, getting the folks to know that what's happening to conserve our waters. Visiting our rate structures, making sure that we get the data, compare them with our own, do comparisons to what we are turned in with the actual payments that we receive, making sure those are accurate. Right now, we approximately have about 1,500 customers connected to our system. Approximately 30 miles of pipe in the ground. Currently, there's four wells, the 2 city wells, the Medina well, Airport well, and there's one outside of the Bendel well that is not connected. At last couple city council meetings before, Mr. Persine, our city engineer, came and talked about the water looping, something that will be beneficial for us to look at and decide whether we want to get that part as part of our conservation or making sure that we have another resource to isolate valves or isolate a side of our city if we have any kind of issues. He was mentioning also that we have limitations as far as pressure or flow pressure. Mm-hmm. Also, we limited redundancy, things like that. And following the Edwards, you mentioned the Edwards Aquifer Authority, following their best management practices, making sure that the wells are not leaking, doing a system audit throughout our entire system. Enforcement, making sure that we're doing the things, policing our own systems, like I mentioned earlier. And on the drought contingency plan, it's a lot like our conservation plan, with the exception of being prohibited during water shortages. And like you mentioned, the flyer, the one that you have a handout on, is involving the public, informing the public that we have shortages. We've been lucky having so much rain here recently, but it's not when we're going to get into the drought season, but we will eventually get into the drought season where we're going to have to watch what we use, and we follow the same parameters that the Edwards has and the San Antonio Water Systems has adopted. We did the same thing, adopted their same program. And like I mentioned earlier, educating our public and our schools, either through or getting through newspapers and or utility bills, mailers, and having it on our website. We do have this plan on our website. I checked it, matter of fact, right before I came over here to make sure that it was on there. The city administrator has the authority to authorize initiate or terminate the time zone when we have the droughts. But they're all triggered by the Edwards Aquifer, meaning when they hit certain trigger points, that they have the guidelines to set different stages. As some of you know, I've seen it on the news before, where they say we're coming up to stage 1. Our levels at the J17 well are getting close, and everybody watches it around here that I can remember. So it's something that we too are very familiar with, and knowing the problems or the shortfalls that we might have in our system is something we got to be attributed to, and making sure that we follow as well. And like I mentioned, this is a plan that we have in place, and we'd like to keep it moving forward. But if you see these handouts, or if they were in the packets, then they show what our trigger points might be. Stage 1, anything that gets below 660 in the J17, we go to 20%, trying to get to 20%. Stage 1, Stage 2, Stage 3, and so on is the trigger points for the Edwards Aquifer. Questions?
Very good. Any questions?
I have one. In a previous council meeting, we discussed having a contingency plan for rebuilding well number 1. Is that included in this? It's
I
not
saw
done
that.
yet, I know, but is it going to be in this plan?
Yes, sir, I saw that in the actual plan. It is part of what we need to get
The
to.
second part of my question is, we've talked a lot about looping, and right now, since we have no development moving at the moment, are we still proceeding with the looping on the Medina Valley well so we can improve the water situation on that side of the highway to support the new development for the Dodge dealer? Is that
Yeah.
in the plan?
That's in the plan. We're actually waiting for, and I think some of the questions you're mentioning will help when we have our workshop. Being able to describe some of those things. We're waiting on some pricing as well from our city engineer, so which will also be part of the decision cost.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gomez, are all these trigger points, they're no different than what they've been in the past, right?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
That's all I have.
Any more?
Not done?
And just to follow up on what Councilman Dyer said, I've been talking to Mr. Elliott and our interims, and we are very, very motivated and intense about having workshops. And so this will be very clear and presented with, numbers and our capital improvement plan. And right now, with the situation the city's in, we're not doing anything that's extra. We're going to do what we need to do. But you will all be informed when we start with the schedule that Lee will be preparing. Okay? So, are we going to do... All right. Can I have a motion, please, to accept?
Move we accept the report from the interim public works director.
So, we're accepting the plan?
Yes, we're readopting the water management plan.
All right. Second?
Oh, okay.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez.
All right, the next one. Discussion and appropriate action on directing interim city administrator to proceed with hiring of a public works director and finance director. And I think this is something we are all well aware of. It's important. I know many think we need the city administrator first. However, we can't have everybody new all at once. We need people that know what's going on, and then the city administrator can also learn. We're in a mess right now. We've got too many people that haven't been here long enough. Mr. Elliott.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. One thing that the mayor kind of alluded to, part of the challenge, we've kind of been in a placeholding situation since July, August, with a lot of the turnover began, whether it be from the city administrator, public works, and since then it's just kind of cascaded throughout the organization for different reasons amongst different reasons. And I believe the council and the former Mayor Kelly, the view was, okay, we're going to start hiring a permanent city administrator. And the goal is for the permanent to be able to hire their department heads to be able to institute, which is a great plan if you're in a more stable situation, if there's one or two department heads. And part of the challenge, what I sent to you guys in my memorandum for backup of this, when you start looking at the numbers, there's 7 or 8 individuals that are considered a management staff. I look around every Monday, we're in a management meeting, I'm like, okay, well, this one's vacant, this one's given his notice, this is an interim. Part of the challenge that you face with timing where we are, we're still probably anywhere from minimum 30 days away, but probably 60 to 90 days until you have a permanent on board in the middle of the budget cycle, the proposed budget coming up. It's difficult, as the mayor alluded to, is to have him or her come in. Okay, let's get acclimated over the next 3 to 6 months to begin this restructuring, let's revitalize this organization. Oh yeah, by the way, you need to hire 5 to 7 key management positions or help with hiring these, and they need to get acclimated at the same time you do. That's a very difficult burden to do. And a couple of the positions I've picked out that really I think help with stability, because part of the challenge you face is you also have interims who are looking for permanent work and can go elsewhere. Well, we have high-quality interims. Well, they could get a job a week after the permanent gets here. You begin to lose some of that continuity. And so, to me, from my perspective, I think what would really help with some stability is to move forward with hiring the finance director and public works director of permanents for those positions.
Start at this end. Mr. Dyer, Councilman Dyer.
Well, I continue to encourage Mr. Elliott to hire a public works director as soon as possible. I don't think we should wait another minute. I support his request to remove the assistant city administrator title from the finance director's title, as you asked for in your letter. So that person, when they're hired, will just be called the finance director, and they will report directly to the city administrator. And I also believe that Mr. Elliott should move forward now and hire a finance director permanent as soon as possible. We need leadership in the city, and we need it now. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Tom.
I would echo the same things that Councilman Herb's saying. I really thought that it was a great idea to wait to get a city administrator hired to fill these two positions, but as it stands right now, we've almost been a year without an administrator, and so I would encourage or support Mr. Elliott working on getting a director and a finance director and a public works director as well on board here. So.
Sounds good. Councilman Byers.
Councilman Dyer was so eloquent, I'm just going to let his stand. I agree with him.
Okay. Councilman Carey?
I always believe it's good to have a plan, but just because you have a plan doesn't mean you have to stick with it. If the situations change, then we need to be able to change with it. So I'll defer to your expertise in administrative management and those aspects as well. So thank you.
Okay. Ms. Martinez.
I agree with everybody. We need to get this ball rolling to get the city back on track, and with the separating of the finance director from the ACA, because that ACA, when they're filling in that administrator level, when they're out of town or something, that's the checks and balances between the two, and there's could be a gray area that we don't need to enter into.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Any more discussion? All right. How about a motion?
I move that we allow our interim city administrator to pursue the hiring of a permanent public works director immediately and separate, I'm sorry, is it finance director? And both. And also eliminate the link between the finance director and the assistant administrator.
I second that motion.
Okay, so that was, I just need a summary. So that motion was to hire the finance, but not public works?
No, he said both.
He said both. And then...
Begin the position, begin the process.
Changing the ACA from finance would have to be another agenda item?
That would come back in the future agenda if you wish to rescind the ordinance that the assistant city administrator is under standalone under the council.
Okay.
That position itself, but I think he was suggesting having the finance director as a...
Accountable to city administrator.
So would that be a separate motion?
It's in his letter.
Okay.
It's fine.
All right, so where are we? Second?
Motion and a second.
Vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Perfect. All right, we're on the road to recovery. All right, the last item. This one we had some discussion about last time, but we do have confidentiality, doesn't allow us really to discuss, but there have been several people that are interested in development. And we do not want unfettered, uncontrolled, unregulated development. Right now, our permit department is overwhelmed. It's one woman. She's a doll. I mean, she's taking care of all this stuff by herself. And we need expert advice. We probably need thoroughfare plans, because if the development happens, we've already got the issues with the highway. So we need professional advice now. We can't, in my opinion, discussing this, we really can't wait. I know last time we had an issue with the particular firm. Let's see what we can do about that. And this again, Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One thing, 2 days when I got here, our community services manager went to Hondo. Since that time, staff has struggled to be able to provide planning services. It's been a very challenging. With all the other things, I do have a background in planning, but I also was doing public works. I'm also doing the city administrator job with a lot of turnover. It's been very difficult to provide that. Kathy, our administrative assistant, has done very well with the permits and the inspections that are coming in, but she does not have a background in planning. The difference, if you step back, what happened, we used to have more people in the community development department who had a background in planning. Laura had grown up as an intern under that plan with a planner to educate her and mentor her. When people left, you had a planner. The challenge that you face, there's not a planner out there right now. So it's difficult time-wise to be able to help. Planning is not something that you really just walk in and someone just starts, oh yeah, we're doing planning. It's a lot more detailed than what a lot of people will realize. And part of the challenge that we're facing right now, the market has sent us a signal. We have advertised the community services position. The few applicants we have gotten are not qualified for the position. And we have really done an amazing job with citizens helping, people on the Planning and Zoning Commission, but we also have to be careful with that because they could be hearing projects. Well, staff needs to be facilitating that. Well, staff is not available right now. In the proposed budget that I'm going to be bringing to you guys would be a planning director position. I think that's one thing that's hurting us. We need to look at kind of the salary and look at a planning director. And that's something, hopefully before I leave we can begin to advertise or maybe fill. But on the interim basis right now, we're struggling to be able to get with developers. And as the mayor just stated, we've got some major economic development items that are coming down fairly quickly. And it would behoove us to have the planner on board to be able to help. This is not a silver bullet. Let me make sure everybody's aware of that. But if there are questions about development, if staff has questions, we can call professional planners who will understand our ordinances and be able to help us or help developers. That's a big challenge right now that we're facing. And I can understand the frustration in the private sector coming to us on those things. The other thing, we have a lot of ordinances that we kind of discussed earlier on in the public comment and everything. You don't have qualified staff right now to do modular homes. You don't. These are major things, and the clock is ticking. The growth is here. This is not going to stop. The one thing, Friesen Nichols, I've had experience with them in my previous city, Runaway Bay, where I helped, and they came in and helped with the planning. There's more growth occurring there just outside of Fort Worth than we currently are, and they've been able to help. There's some major things that we really need to begin to look at. Well, without a planner on staff, that's very difficult, and we're losing time to be able to do that. There were some questions when we brought this. I think it was a couple months ago this came to you guys, and there were some questions. The proposed service contract that is there's some lined out items, and it addresses some of those concerns. They were not being hired to do the comprehensive plan, that type of stuff is not what they're doing, but it's general services contracts all encompassing, because we could be, let's say, 2 months down the road and something major is coming up. Because if you look at the thoroughfare plan, as the mayor is discussing, we can landlock a lot of our thoroughfares. We think the traffic's bad right now. Add development without an accurate thoroughfare plan with side roads, connectivity. We've got a global thoroughfare plan right now, but it's not addressing more individualized areas on the east side. And so that's something, if you do have them contractually, they can come in, they can help. Because part of the challenge we're going to face, part of the reason I think Laura left is being one person doing this. There's so many phone calls, and there was so much demand to do plans and major ordinances, she couldn't get to it. The phone calls were eating her alive. And that's what, we're struggling with right now. We have an administrative assistant that's taking over buildings. She's doing all this. She's a public works helping with this. I'm going to see an administrator running around with 7 of my management staff gone or vacant or interim. So for a short-term fix, this is one of the best items I can do. I did my research, as the council had asked previously. The challenge that you face, there's not many planning services that help with day-to-day questions. Most planning services help with comprehensive plan, major plans, or ordinances to institute it. But if I got a developer wanting to know what my lots are in this area, what do we do? This is one of the few services I've been able to find, and you have Texas knowledge. You have a base of about 20 different planners who have dealt with stuff in Texarkana to Temple, to Brownsville, to Austin, to El Paso. You have this matrix. Dealing with modular homes, that's a major issue in Texas, and they have some planners that can really help us with that at a high quality level. The one thing is this contract would be until September. It's capped at $25,000. Monthly, they will be going through me. We will be checking to make sure we're getting the quality from what's going on and this is what's occurring. So monthly, you've got the internal controls that are there.
I'd like to just say one more thing. You guys all know that my platform was growth and to control and regulate it. In our present state, we can't do anything. The interlocal agreement means nothing. So we did have an interlocal agreement with the county, which we were kind of depending on, but it doesn't mean anything. So we need to do something. Let's start with questions. Councilwoman Martinez.
Now, I read through the packet and the proposed contract for their services. Now, where are they home based out of? Up near Dallas, or will we have a physical body that would be able to be here?
The planner that will be assisting us is out of San Marcos.
Okay.
And so when we need him here, he can be here.
Okay. And they choose which planner to send. We don't have hey, we need somebody to...
We could, I mean, the one thing is Chance is a generalist, but if we need a specialist in certain areas, we could have, I mean, the way it works, Dan Sefco heads up their planning area, and if you need streets, they have a street planner that specializes in these things. You don't have, I mean, the generalist disseminates day-to-day type stuff, but if we need a thoroughfare plan, you've got a planner. The other thing is that planner can work with engineers also. I mean, you've got the support system to be able to do that.
And that would be at no additional charge for that?
Well, there would always be a charge.
No, but I mean, yeah, they would have their generalist here, but if he or she needs to tap into, like you were saying, the specialist for the roads or for this, that wouldn't be an additional charge to tap into that person?
It would be, the charge would be at the rate of using that person that we would use for the specialist.
That draw against the $25,000 we set aside?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, no. That's what I'm trying to get clarified.
Sorry, I didn't.
Oh, no. That's all I have.
You good? Okay, Councilman Carey. Questions?
You had been given instructions to see if there's anybody else who does this, and apparently you were unable to find anybody else who does this. There was some bad taste in the mouth of some previous council members with Friesen Nichols, but that was primarily with their engineering division. And I think their planning division it's oranges and apples to some degree. I did notice that you removed some of those engineering services from the proposal, and I think that accomplishes a lot of what we were trying to accomplish. So I'm in support of getting some help around here.
And if I could expound a little bit, Dan Sefco's firm, actually, you are seeing engineering firms starting to get into the planning, and Dan Sefco pretty much is autonomous in there. It'll just be the planning. I've not dealt with Friesen Nichols. I mean, they are a large firm. I think they're the largest in Texas, actually. But as far as planning in Runaway Bay and some different areas, I've been able, they've done it. Dan Sefco's done a good job, whether it's as an independent or now being in Friesen Nichols. He did our comprehensive plan in Mount Vernon. He does a very good one. I have good experience in 3 other cities with them.
Good. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Myers.
And you say you couldn't find anybody that did day-to-day?
Yes, sir.
Well, I called 30 minutes. I found two places in San Antonio that said they did that. But anyway, on that Friesen Nichols, I still, from what I understand, I still can't go with them.
Can you give us more explanation, please?
Explanation of what?
Why we need to know if we're going to vote. Can you tell us why you're...
Why I'm against it?
Yeah.
Because they have bungled it, the company has bungled it and overcharged it, and then I know you say that they're separate entities, but they're not. I mean, it's owned by the same company, the same board, the same shareholders. The philosophy is going to be the same pretty much in Department A, Department B, and Department C.
Could you, what specifically did they do with the city about this bundling and overcharging?
I'm not here to take a
No,
grilling from you.
No,
I'm having a discussion with him.
But we need to
I have understood they have overcharged, they have underperformed, and it just didn't work out real well with Freeze and Nichols.
Could we get evidence?
Have we
Deborah?
seen...
Is there...
Well, and I don't know, they were our city engineers, and then they also have worked on the wastewater treatment plant, and then kind of two different things. As far as I know, as a city engineer, they did not go over the budget. Now, if it's something to do with the wastewater treatment plant, that's a different, a different project. But that's the only thing I know of is as far as the city engineering fees, when they came in, it was on point.
Well, and the wastewater project has, every time you turn around, it's been a nightmare. We've got to add this, we've got to fix that. They didn't even realize you had things that would, when you had a corner, things would stop in it rather than having it rounded off. We had to add some kind of structure in there to prevent that, and that's what I say. Every time we turned around, it was we need more money, and I think they fleeced us for about as much as they could. And I'm not going to vote for them.
Okay. I'd just like to say something about this. The wastewater treatment plant is a monster in itself. From what I understand, it was planned well, but previous government decided not to include several important pieces. So we're left with fixing something that is supposed to be a $12 million plant that we paid $8 million for. So I'm not familiar with what Councilman Byers is saying. However, there is quite a bit of fault on the side of the city for the problems with our treatment plant, which we are addressing. We have this gentleman, Mr. Gomez, right now that is working 24, trying to get it straight to see what we absolutely need.
Well, I think the engineering was KSA.
But the original plan was to point. I've checked it.
But the plant was built by
previous government, the previous council asked not to include certain things, and we
and I
can go
think
back.
I think if it had been for lack of a better word, an ethical company dealing, they would have said, no, you can't do that. You've got to have these. I think what happened was, and I agree with you, they left them out saying, we know this is going to have to happen, and they kicked the road down to the council right before and this council, so they didn't have to shoulder the quote blame for the higher expenses. They knew that money was going to have to be spent, and then didn't, and basically hit it from the council and from the citizens.
It's difficult to bring a professional's ethics in. I won't expound upon that. All I can say, I was not here, so it's difficult for me to necessarily say the XYZ. I will say this, the one thing that I have gleaned in the 3 months I've been here, as the mayor alluded to, there are a lot of things I think the council wasn't aware of that had happened internally that also manipulated this plant and the design. There's issues there, and we very well can be in lawsuits in the very near future, to be honest. But the city also did extrapolate some things administratively that affected the operations of this plant. That's all I can say. I don't.
It's a lot bigger than, there's a lot more involved than just blaming a particular, there's a lot of players. That's all I can say. Councilman? Sure.
I would support Mr. Elliott's decision on trying to use Freeze and Nichols with the two things that one of the things that Mr. Carey alluded to, that we're using it for planning, and also that we have a cap of 25,000, and also that we're using them temporarily. So I would support that.
Okay. Dyer.
I applaud you for bringing it back. I think the city needs these people. We have a void that we can't fill internally, and we need these jobs done. And I think you've got a lot of checks and balances built in. I read the whole package. There is an administrative error that you have to fix on page SC3. Part of the scope of services on Article 4. If you look, Article 4A is duplicated down in Article 4G. It's word for word the same paragraph.
Okay.
So you need to delete paragraph G and relabel the 4 paragraphs after it. And I think everything in here strengthens your position by getting monthly invoices and being able to check every month. We can prevent what Jesse has expressed concern about. And I would support approving an amount not to exceed $25,000 to hire Freeze and Nichols professional urban planning services as requested. Thank you, that's all I have.
All right, I'm going to throw some more in here. The biggest issue we have right now is development in the ETJ, extended ETJ. Our responsibilities as the CCN. And right now, we don't have anyone that could professionally help us with these things, and they need to be done as soon as possible. So I'm just throwing that in. And could I have a motion?
I have one more thing. For benefit, excuse me, for the city, since there is questions about things that they've done in the past, is there a statement allowed that says if the city feels at any point in time that this company is not providing the services we wanted, that the contract can be immediately terminated?
I think there's a time clause in there, but as an administrator, I mean, I can say, okay, we're going to cease and desist, we're going to stop
Without
phoning
any
you guys,
penalties.
and then I can bring it to you guys. That's
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I have one other
Yes.
question. This is not something, they're not going to be here billing charges. This is an as-needed, on-call, they only do what we ask them to do.
Yes,
If we
sir.
quit asking them to do it, then they don't do it. So.
Yes, sir, the clock never starts. And the one thing, Madam Mayor, if I could actually bring this back to, with the position of the community services manager being vacant since the end of January, there's money in there for the 25K. There's plenty in that line item, so it's kind of a zero-sum item there until the end of September. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so summing up, most of us are for. Let's get a motion that's a complete motion, because I forgot.
Herb, would you restate what you said as a motion?
I move we approve an amount not to exceed $25,000 to purchase Freeze and Nichols Incorporated professional urban planning services as requested by the city administrator.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
No.
All right, so 4 for, 1 against. All right, so these things will be brought up later. Mr. Elliott, you'll let us know progress, what's going on.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, that's it. So
You got number 9.
I have,
Agenda items.
yeah. So I'm new. So you'll bring those up as agenda items later, or you'll just keep us informed as the process is?
What I can do, is give you guys status updates
Okay.
with these items. I guess the future agenda items.
That would be what y'all are looking to possibly put on the agenda, if we don't already have it listed.
And how is this going to work with confidentiality agreements with developers?
That would be outside of the future agenda items. That's something internally we would have knowledge-wise.
Couldn't we be updated in executive session? No?
Unless we're specifically...
You have to be specific in who is coming to tell you updates. As far as the developer itself, you can't have it. I've asked that about legal questions.
We can be updated on negotiations that are attorney-client privileged type information. The mayor may ask for that, and she could set up executive sessions for those things. But just to have a general discussion like I asked for 2 weeks ago, the lawyer says we can't do that. Has to be specific to the negotiations.
That's what I sent to y'all as information.
Okay. Any more questions? All right. Let's start. Well, you're new, but you probably have some out-of-the-box ideas. So, any thoughts, agenda items, or thoughts in general?
Well, when it comes to the updates and items like that, should maybe like once a quarter provide an update, choose a month for different items. That way it's easier to plug into your agendas, and we'll get our updates as needed, and it possibly tie into anything else that's on the agenda.
We were talking about that, old and new business.
Well, that or on some of the updates you're requesting, and it's up to you, depending on what you have. The permanent city administrator generally would generate a weekly or bi-weekly update to the council on the happenings of what was going on, or if he had requested something, in general. Now, if it's a report, it's a different thing. But they generally, once they become the permanent, they do send out information to you. So that's something also, and it would be police report or different things that you request.
New and old business be worth it?
Depending on how you,
well, we'll talk about it later. Anyway.
Well, logistically, we're beginning to work on that process, I guess would be the best way to say
If you
it.
have a future agenda item you'd like to see placed on the agenda, depending on what it is, on how much research we need to do and that type of thing, that's what we're asking. If you're not sure now, you can always email and send it to us, and that way we'll put it on our radar so that we can start the process and research it and figure out when we can get it on for you.
Very important that we get that packet information so you guys can look at it before it's discussed. Good? Okay. Councilman Carey.
Nothing pressing, thank you.
Yes, I'd like to see us go forward as rapidly as possible, and as on a chief of police, I agree with Herb down there. We need to get started. From what I understand, we have a number of applications that have just been sitting there. I think we need, and I realize that is a hire by the city council, so I think we need to get started on that yesterday. And also, means we're going to be bringing this person on, or this company on. I think we need to get started immediately on the modular home ordinance.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
No agenda items at this time for me.
Any thoughts?
Not at this time.
149 days to deer season.
I didn't even know that, but thanks.
Nothing? Okay, I think that's it. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
All right, a second?
I second it.
All right, thank you all. And the meeting has ended at, I can't see my glasses, 7:21. 7:20.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have an open door policy. You guys get with your council members, me, anybody. We need your input.
Well, I want to know if my 12-picture grandson